The unprecedented pace of disruption and uncertainty makes leadership more relevant today than ever before. It is not position or power, but your leadership skills that help you to think in unique, creative ways. When faced with a crisis, a leader is forced to think and make critical decisions. A leader who empowers a team and gives the employees accountability increases the effectiveness of an organization. John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Warren Bennett says leadership is the capacity to turn vision into reality. Bill Gates says, as we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. Today, I have the honor of welcoming Thomas Walenta. Thomas Walenta, PMP, PGMP, and PMI Fellow, worked for IBM from 1983 to 2014 in a variety of client projects. He worked in his first project in 1974 and built his first PMO from 1995. He is a member of PMI since 1992 and of GPM IPMA since 1995. As a PMI volunteer from 1998, he led the PMI Frankfurt chapter for 8 years, was elected to the PMI board for 2 terms of 3 years each, and was a member of the PMI Ethics Review Committee for 6 years. Today, he is coaching, teaching, and mentoring. He considers himself a global project economy expert, covering all aspects of a new project management paradigm for people from 5 to 75 across all value delivery frameworks and helping the global society to improve. Welcome to this interview, Thomas.
Thank you, Rajiv. I'm pleased to be invited by you and have the opportunity to discuss with you some of the topics in these times of disruption.
I'd like to begin by asking you, what do you think are 3 traits that a project manager or a leader should have to thrive in a disruptive economy?
Yeah, Rajiv. So I think there are a lot of triples of characteristics you will see in the papers, in webinars, and everywhere. But for me, it's really important to see that you have emotional intelligence, which means you have leadership and social skills, and you can have a self-awareness of who you are, what your self-control, that you can manage your emotions, and you can really calm down, especially in times when there is a stress or a disruption coming up. And then although you have the empathy to understand what others are feeling, are thinking in the sense, you know, if you have a disruption, they will also be maybe full of fear and threats, and their situation is changing. So you have to feel that, and you have to understand it and help them. And if you deal with people, you know, without taking their specific situation into consideration, you will fail to address them. And then it's the 4th point of emotional intelligence is addressing them, you know, influencing them. And that's very important. So I would say emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-control, empathy, and influencing are the 4 things which are needed for leaders and were needed for leaders before. Second thing is, in these times, you know, and it started decades before, technology is becoming more and more important. And we see it now in the Corona times when everybody is in virtual meetings and only can talk to people over the internet. You know, connectivity and technology is so important, and you have to transform yourself into somebody who loves technology, who is interested in. Look at what artificial intelligence can do, how you can use it. And it's this next 10 years, will be a roller coaster ride of new technology coming into the place. And if you're not open to that, if you're not looking what's new on the horizon, then you will be not able to just keep the pace with the change that's coming and implement the right. So give you one example. So we have now everybody has a smartphone. Everybody, no, not everybody, but 4 billion people are connected through the internet, through some devices, most through smartphones, iPhones, Android phones. But in 10 years, we will be 9 billion people on the earth, and everybody will be connected through the internet. And this increases dramatically the path of connection and the creativity and the capabilities. This, I call it the human hive, and the human hive can also only be utilized for the benefit of your project or of yourself if you are technically savvy. So I myself was always savvy. I was an early adopter of the Palm Pilot in the 90s. I had a Nokia phone, in the year 2000, and it goes on. I always was really very interested. And even now, if you look at my finger, I have a ring on there. That's a famous Oura ring. So it gives me a permanent monitoring of my health indicators. And on the smartphone, it gives me a warning if something happens if I don't do enough steps, if my blood pressure is coming on, if my sleep is not well. So it gives me monitoring that, and it gives me some safety now, because it would indicate if I caught a corona, because some of the values will go out of shape then, So it could be an additional early warning if I want to look at it. So first thing, leadership with emotional intelligence. Second thing, technology. And the third thing is, think about a glass that is half full, have a growth mindset. That's the buzzword which is up there. Have an agile mindset. Think, okay, there is something changing. Let's have a positive look at it. What can I do with it? It's always the perspective of an opportunity to. Don't think of it as a threat only. It might be a threat to your current way of doing things, but it also is an opportunity to do new things and to jump the wagon and to go forward. So these three things.
Next, we go to a crisis response. How does a leader respond to a crisis? And what are some important parts of that response?
Well, the first thing you exercise emotional intelligence, you exercise self-control. So you stay calm. And you can learn to stay calm, by learning how to exercise emotional self-control. So do some yoga, do some getting up in the morning, some mind games, and become a self-controlled person, a mindful person. And staying calm is important because, if a crisis hits, then people think about the threats and think about maybe what's the next thing to do, only focusing on the bad things to happen. But think about there are also opportunities growing then, and grasp these opportunities. So take a stock of what you have. Many companies, what they can change is the marketplace, the customers. They can change it because they know the customers and they can change the products. But what they don't change so easily is the assets they have, the employees, the knowledge. That's what they can do. So just in my neighborhood, there was a factory who was a chemical factory, and they were doing some perfume and stuff. With Corona, they immediately, within 1 week, they skipped their product to have a hand sanitizer rolled out to the hospitals. And now they are one of the major firms to deliver hand sanitizers in Germany. So, there's also luck out there and opportunities, and you grasp it. But then, once you have done this, you still start thinking, okay, this crisis is going to take some time. It's not going back to the status quo we had before. So then you have to think strategically. Okay, do I have a new vision? Do I have a new strategy? Do I have new targets? And this goes in parallel that you are still surviving and making money.
Coming to a leader and his team, how do you keep your team motivated and connected? And how would you support them during a crisis?
Yeah, so during this crisis, previously, um, we met the team maybe in the office, at the coffee bar. We had one-on-one meetings and at a meeting table. So, and we exercised as leaders, as managers, we exercised our personal um, ability to approach people with a smile and have a handshake, and clap on the shoulder and say something nice. So that's gone. That's today you have only virtual connectivity, but you have to do the same stuff somehow. You have to provide them safety. So if you have a small team, you can have weekly one-on-one calls with them, talking not so much about business progress and plans, but talking about their personal situation so that they feel appreciated. That's empathy, and that you even sometimes can help them with something, maybe they need a new laptop or a better connectivity or whatever, and you can, or a microphone or a camera to do, so you can probably help them with them, with some of their problems, but at least if they feel that you care about their problems, they feel much more attracted to you. That's how you build trust. That's how you build collaboration. And then there are a lot of things you could do. What I've seen in teams, in general, people say in these virtual environments, teams are able to work more efficiently. So they get more done because, you don't have the need to change your clothing so much. You don't have the need to travel to work, and you don't have to need to spend a lot of time in the cafeteria and then so on. So you work from home, you have your dates, but you also can work more efficiently. So what I would suggest is, if you have a team, that you try to build also pairs in that team. Bring together two people who are totally different and make them talk once a week. And we will probably see that if they are different, they will be able to discover new things in the other, and this will be an interesting dialogue, which also creates some empathy between them and helps both of them to develop.
If you look back at your career, what is one of the biggest challenges you have faced as a project manager or leader?
Well, I'm a project for some time, and in each project you learn something, and that's why I choose that profession. In each of my projects was done with a different industry, with a different client. So what I had to learn, is that you go into a new industry, you go into a new culture. It's like changing the country. Yeah? The language is different. The perception of time is different, of money is different. So I worked for retail customer, and I worked for a Ministry of Justice, government employees, totally different behaviors and perceptions and values. And this is, for me, the interesting part, to learn about that. And it's a part of empathy, and as I mirror back to them how I perceive them, they feel respected, and though that's how it goes. So I always enjoyed going into that new environment, and one of I didn't have big problems with customers, actually. They somehow I managed that they like me all the time. I had internal problems, with the company I worked for. So give you an example. So I had a project that was scheduled for 3 years' time, clearly with a target reach after 3 years, and a budget for that and everything. And but if your company and if your manager has an annual target, you know, then it's difficult to align these two targets. So the project target has different implications than the annual targeting of these companies have, you know. And so if your customer, your manager asks you to do something to help him achieve his target, but it's not good for the project, what do you do? What do you do? No? So that was the most difficult things that the company internal sponsor had a different target for the project than the customer had, or even the contract with the customer had.
Today, we are working in a virtual setting. Even now, we are speaking virtually. So Zoom, Skype, Google Meet, WhatsApp, and we have all these tools. And we have moved from co-location, face-to-face meetings to a virtual workplace. How do you lead effectively in a virtual workplace?
Yes, it's for me, I think it's even easier. You know, as I said before, now you go into you come from that meeting the people in the office space, in the environment, day by day, and you exercise in an unconscious way how you influence people. You know, you approach them, you can touch them, you know how to react to them. But now you have to plan this. You know, you have to make sure, because you have to call them, you have to agree on a date when we can discuss, and when he is also free and doesn't have other things. So you have to have one-on-ones, and have to make sure you establish this kind of support, this kind of safety for your people. And then, you know, you also have to communicate much more clearly in writing. So if you invite for meetings, you know, prepare it better, and we have all the tools at hand. And what helps now is to be quite formal on these tools, and learn more about them, and be aware of what you are doing. Other than if you meet them face to face, you know, sometimes you are not aware what you're doing. You're just you are just yourself, you know, and you cannot be yourself in a virtual environment, because only a part of you, you know, is being displayed. But what also helps, you know, and you, I hope I can convey it in this dialogue, you know, if you can put yourself into a state of passion, you know. So I hope I come over at being passionate about what I'm doing, and you can try to do this. And this is also something you cannot flip on or off, but you have to learn, and you have to be a little bit confident about what you're talking, you know, and what you're doing there.
So in the beginning of this year, many organizations were taken by surprise when this COVID-19 pandemic struck. So how does one preempt such a risk and factor it into their project management plan?
Well, for me, it's a crisis of risk management, you know, and as project managers, we all learn about risk management, but I would say maybe 50% say, okay, we don't do that, has no use for us, you know. I've worked in so many projects where risk management was somehow a lip service. Why risk management? Because the fact, the risk that the pandemic will come was known for years, you know, and actually in the last 20 years, we had at least 3 pandemics, which were all not so severe, but we could, well, not severe in the globe, but locally they were so severe. So that's why the Asian countries, you know, like Vietnam, like Korea, they knew what was coming, and they were prepared, and they took the right measures quite quickly. There was no problem in the US, so that's why they neglected. If people don't have the experience of a catastrophe in their lifetime, they forgot about it, and they don't prepare, and they cannot reflect on that. You know, but even US, even Europe, countries were prepared for that. but they hoped it wouldn't come. So some had stuffed their masks and whatever, you know. Um, but it was not enough in other countries, or other countries didn't think it would come. So what I want to say is, this is not a surprise. You know, this is a neglectance of being a good risk management expert, and exercising good risk management, and listen to the people who know something about the fact. And my advice would be to companies to strengthen their enterprise risk management, to include such kind of things in the future, to establish something like, which is called internal audit. That's standardized. There's an ISO standard for that, and there are good practices. Internal audit makes sure, sorry, that your risk management is effective. Yeah, you can establish all that stuff, and you should do that, and then you're on the better side. And two things on addition to that. So some companies did that, and these are the companies that thought about business continuity management. You know, can prepare for that. How can you make sure that you know, your business doesn't break down if such kind of things happen? And so companies have diverse offices. Some companies, you know, they split their team so that they don't meet during office time. They are not allowed to meet in the private time, so they cannot infect each other. So that's all good practice. So we can handle it, and the companies who didn't handle it, well, it's their own fault in the past.
What do you see as a future for project managers?
Well, it's a bright future, because at the core, what a project manager is doing is he or she is providing security and safety for all the stakeholders. You know, the sponsor or the client, they want to have a safety and security, how to reach the target, you know, is the budget enough, and does the timeline hold, and what is in the scope. That's all insecure, because it is the future, you know, there's a risk with that. And a project manager has to give them the safety, security. Yes, I know what we're doing. That is a plan, and you know, there's a risk. But we take care about this. So he can do all that stuff for them, but also for the team. Gives the team safety. If your team is not safe, they will not collaborate. There's no trust. You know, they need the safety, as I said before. How you can build safety within the team by talking to each of the guys, and also the recipients of your product in the project. You know, is it a piece of software, or is it something? The people, the users who get it, the customers who are using your product later, they also want to have the safety that this is something that they can work with, and they should work with, because often it's that you implement a new solution, let's say in software, in enterprise resource management, you know, what you will see that the people are afraid of being laid off, you know, there's a role change, and how does it affect me? So there are methods like change management, organizational change management, that take care of that. So we have all these tools in hand, but in the end, what we are doing, focusing, is providing safety. And you know, in these times, more disruptions, more change, more artificial intelligence, safety will be very valuable for everybody. So our future as project managers is bright.
Finally, do you have any words of advice for youngsters or millennials who wish to take up a career in project management or leadership?
Yeah. I said I was my first project in 1974 when I was 20 years old. And not many people talked about projects at this time. You know, it was not, but now it's a term. And if you're young, you know, project management is also for kids. So we have in PMI, we have the PMI Educational Foundation, who brought project management as a life skill, a skill for life, you know, like reading, like math, like something to the schools. And what they learned is a social behavior, you know. They learned empathy, they learned influencing others, they learned self-control. And this is something that project managers can bring into schools. and learn. So if you are a young person and you are still in school, it's for you, you know. There's enough material to learn for school kids, what project management is, what the terms are, and what to do. And also all the things about leadership are very important. And, you know, after a professional life, look at me, you know, I'm out of business or out of my 100% business since 6 years, but I'm still busy, you know, I'm still working and I'm doing a lot of mentoring, helping others, having these kind of exchanges like we have right now. And, you know, it's a life skill. Once you are good at it, you probably see that you can deep dive and help others and improve the world.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for your words of wisdom and insight on all those questions. It was a pleasure listening to you offer your advice. And I'm sure those who watch this or listen to this will benefit from it a great deal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Bye-bye.